The Honda CBR 1100 Super Blackbird is a marvel of motorcycle engineering, producing well over 160 horsepower at the crank from an engine which is quite small by today's standards. But what does that power feel like in the saddle? Well, that's what we're going to find out today. So let's jump on and let's go. As I'm sure a lot of you know, this motorcycle in the mid-90s was one of, if not the fastest motorcycles in the world at the time. And to be honest with you, it isn't really that far behind the likes of, well, the fastest motorcycles in the world today. I know we've done our ride review on this motorcycle already, and if you haven't checked that one out, then I heavily recommend that you do if you're looking to buy one of these motorcycles. But this is the fuel-injected edition, because this is a 2002 model, if I remember correctly. But since then, I've had a much better opportunity to put this motorcycle through its paces to really figure out what it's like to ride from a performance perspective. And despite the fact that I don't think this bike feels as quick as some of the other bikes in our roster, you can't take anything away from it, man. This is still an incredibly quick motorcycle, and I mean, it has a lot of horsepower, but it's also producing a lot of torque, and off the top of my head I can't remember what that is. I'll pop it on the screen for you now, but it is a significant amount of torque. And this, honestly you guys, this is not a big engine for the amount of horsepower that it's producing. Remember that the latest iteration of the Suzuki Hayabusa, the third gen Hayabusa, is producing a similar amount of horsepower to this bike. Now the second gen and the first gen Hayabusas, they were producing more power than this bike. I mean, that was the thing back then. These bikes had to be producing monster horsepower numbers, and that's pretty much what this motorcycle started. It started the trend in a lot of ways, and I know that there were a few bikes before this that maybe would have held the title for a little while, but this is the bike for some reason that really seems to stick in everyone's minds. This and the Hayabusa. Unfortunately, the ZR 1400, as much as I think that's actually the best bike out of all three of them in terms of a riding experience perspective, it is the least well known, which seems crazy, but that is still one of the fastest motorcycles in the world today, even next to the likes of, well, the Ninja H2 from Kawasaki, the latest iteration of the ZX-10R, the CBR 1000RR, sorry, from Honda. I mean, I don't know if the R1 is, I mean, I'm pretty sure the R1 has got a similar top speed, but I think the ZR will get you there a little bit quicker, at least in terms of 0 to 60, quarter mile, things like that. But like I said, I don't want to take anything away from this motorcycle. This motorcycle is still incredibly powerful, and don't let its age get to you, because despite the fact that this bike is 22, 23 years old, it still packs a hell of a punch. And unfortunately, this time of year isn't the right time of year to be really pushing this motorcycle to its limits, but luckily we have had a few days where the roads have been dry enough that I could put this bike through a bit, you know, but open the taps up a little bit and see what this bike is made of. And one of those things that I've discovered about this motorcycle is producing power a little bit differently to, well, other bikes that I've ridden that are producing a lot of horsepower and a lot of torque. So this bike's engine produces power in a similar way to a Super Sport, where, yeah, it has a little bit of power. Oh, I say a little bit. It has quite a lot of power in the low to mid-range RPMs, but you really feel that power in the top-end RPMs, whereas on bikes like my ZH2, the ZR 1400, you are feeling more torque lower down in the rev range, and you're still getting a lot more at the top end as well. Yes, I mean, these bikes are producing 30 odd horsepower more than this, So maybe that's where the difference is. But honestly, this bike, one of the things that I actually quite like about it is that despite the fact that when you want power, the power is there. You don't have to work for it that much to get a decent amount of power out of this bike. But there's always a little bit more power to gain, if you know what I mean. There's always a little bit extra right at the top end to really play with if you want to. Now this bike is geared fairly long, so I mean, I say fairly long, you're going to be looking about 75 to 80 mile an hour topping out first gear. So yes, you are going to be breaking some speed limits trying to reach the peak horsepower of this motorcycle if you're not careful, but there's still lots and lots to play with below that speed. In first and second gear you're getting loads and loads of torque, and this is a heavy bike, man, as well. It's actually, to be fair, it's not quite as heavy as the Hayabusa or the ZR 1400, but it is still a chunky girl, but she is pretty nimble for the most part. But this bike really, its forte is going fast in a straight line. That's what this thing was made to do, and hopefully we can open it up a little bit in these country roads here. But yeah, it's honestly, it's a very exciting and very satisfying riding experience. And no, you don't have to be a lunatic or a maniac to ride a motorcycle like this. You can actually enjoy it quite a lot with, you know, it's not like all or nothing. You know, if I pin the throttle back, yes, you're getting a lot of power, but it's not an all or nothing like experience. You're able to roll on the throttle to get, you know, to get comfortable with the power that you want out of the bike. It's a very predictable riding experience. It's not, nothing is unexpected about this bike, which I find absolutely fantastic. And of course, this motorcycle is too old for things like power modes or anything like that, but that's why it's even more important that this motorcycle is pretty approachable for people. And it is. It honestly is. Especially below 4,000 RPM. You're not producing so much torque that it's unmanageable. You know, you're not producing so much power that you're going to be doing a ridiculous speed in a short space of time. A lot of that does depend on your right hand, of course, but this is still a very, very fast motorcycle that is still very approachable and can be ridden sensibly. If you want to ride it like a maniac, I mean, this bike will encourage you to do that. It loves to go a little bit quicker, you know? It will play as hard as you want to play, pretty much, for the most part. It won't. Honestly, for the vast majority of riders, this is going to be more than enough power that you're going to want to play with on a day-to-day basis. And you're going to struggle, really, to hit the top horsepower on this motorcycle on everyday roads. On a racetrack or something like that, then yeah, knock yourself out. But on everyday roads, it's going to be a bit of a struggle for you. But look, that doesn't take anything away from this motorcycle. Again, there's still loads and loads, buckets of power and torque to play with on this motorcycle, just riding every single day. So even if you want to start off your ride quite chilled, quite relaxed, then you get into your stride a little bit and you want to push it a little bit, honestly, this bike will absolutely love it. This bike will be more than happy to oblige. And again, when you're talking about the way how the motorcycle handles, don't be afraid of that either. Yes, this bike's forte is going fast in a straight line, but it's still plenty nimble enough going round bends. Honestly, you can lean this bike over quite comfortably and quite confidently. Just make sure you got some decent tires on you. Because when bikes are producing a lot of horsepower, when it's quite a lot of weight over the front wheel when you're braking, it will go through the tyre tread a little bit quicker than smaller, less powerful bikes. So yeah, just keep that in mind, alright. But man, yeah, what a motorcycle this is. it's really funny, you guys, because I've gotten on my ZZR again a few times since buying this motorcycle, and that bike is absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's a 2016, so it's a pretty new bike. But when I'm looking at this, when I'm riding this bike, the amount of bang for buck that you're getting. I paid 10 grand for that bike. Yes, that was 4 years ago. It's probably worth closer to 6, 7, 8 grand now. Nowadays. Oh, bloody hell, people don't know how roundabouts work. But this bike cost me £1,700 with an MOT. £1,700. That is it. That's hardly anything. So that's like, what, $2,000? It's not a lot of money for a hell of a lot of bike. No, you're not going to be getting ABS. No, you're not going to be getting any kind of traction control or wheelie control or anything like that. But I'm telling you, you don't need it. And I've been riding this bike in the autumn and now the winter, when road conditions arguably are the worst, and this motorcycle fills me with so much confidence. Genuinely, it is such a great riding experience. And sitting in the cockpit here, honestly, it feels like you're in a jet. You're in a fighter jet. It's so fun, and the way the dashboard is designed, it is quite minimalist, but at the same time, it's quite well designed. It kind of completes the experience, you know, with the way how the dashboard looks. And despite the fact that it's looking a little bit dated these days, it's I don't know, man, I still like it. A lot of bikes have still got old-fashioned dials like this, so it doesn't feel like it's that far behind. I mean, yes, when you're looking at motorcycles with full-color TFT displays, then yes, it's starting to look a little bit dated compared to those, but compared to my ZZR, it's the same. It's near enough exactly the same. Just looks a little bit sharper, a little bit more modern, but for the most part, in terms of the aesthetics, it looks the same. But I'm telling you, you guys, I love this motorcycle. I did a video recently about why I've always wanted a Blackbird, but since then, because that was like, I did that video the first day, the day after I got this bike. And even though that video came out a little bit later, like, having this riding experience has confirmed to me that I was right to want one of these bikes. And I wanted one of these bikes over a Hayabusa. I don't know why, but for me, for the era that I was really starting to get into bikes, this was the motorcycle that everyone wanted at the time. And people still do, despite the fact that, that the Hayabusa is arguably better in a lot of ways. This still holds its own. It is an amazing motorcycle. And look, you guys, okay, it's missing a lot of modern features, I get it. But you're not going to be missing those features. Adjustable suspension, yeah, that sucks a little bit. But you don't need it. I don't know if there's a bike out there, an iteration of this bike that does have adjustable front forks. I don't know. I haven't looked it up. But honestly, from this riding experience I'm having right now, it doesn't feel too soft, it doesn't feel too hard. It feels just right for this motorcycle and for the type of riding that I do. If you're looking to do track days, or I don't know, you might ride a little bit quicker than I do, then yeah, okay, the suspension and the brakes might not suit that type of riding style, but the type of riding that I do is really damn good. And I love that this one's the fuel injected model as well. I do prefer fuel injected bikes over carbureted ones, but if you end up buying a pre-2001 bike and it's carbureted, honestly, don't worry about it. That's still going to be a fantastic riding experience nonetheless. You'll genuinely adore it. But I don't know, I just prefer fuel injected bikes for the most part. But God, what a bike this is, man. It is so exhilarating. but at the same time you can cruise with it if you wanted to. Oh my goodness, yeah. Sometimes with these old bikes I'm at a loss for words, because a lot of the time I'm not expecting an awful lot when I get these bikes. I'm really not. I'm kind of like, well, yeah, okay, it's cheap and cheerful, it's going to be a new bike for the channel, everyone's going to appreciate it. But then when I actually ride the bike, I'm blown away. No, it's not at the same level of these newer bikes. No, it isn't. But it's still damn good. It's really close to those bikes. You're not missing out on an awful lot of motorcycle, but you're paying a hell of a lot less for it. Absolutely mind-blowing what this bike, the feelings that this bike gives me. Just out of this world fun. A lot of fun, but at the same time quite a mature riding experience, if that's the type of riding experience that you want. This bike is quite versatile in that regard. It will ride the way how you want it to, you know, and it's good at a lot of it. Well, most of it, all of it, in fact. It's good at all of it, genuinely. There's so much confidence leaning it in, man. Leaning it over, so much confidence. It's very, very good, and it's very, very stable. You don't feel at all like you're riding an old bike. This bike, right, if you sat someone on it semi-blindfolded, right, and told them to ride it, and they didn't know what it was, I seriously don't think that they would say it was 23, 24 years old. Honestly. This is fantastic, and this bike was an import as well. It came from the Isle of Man, so it's got that on the reg plate, which is amazing, because it does give people behind you the impression that this motorcycle means business, and it really does. When you've got that Isle of Man TT kind of vibe. Yeah, this bike. I mean, what was the top speed of this bike? Was it like 172 mile an hour? Something like that. God, it's a lot of horsepower, a lot of horsepower, a lot of top speed for a bike of this age. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, did I say in the intro 170 horsepower? I think it's producing close to 165 for memory. I genuinely can't remember. Like when I do my ride reviews, I get my I do my numbers and I have them in the back of my mind, but after it's been a little while, I do tend to forget, because you don't really need to worry about that, really. The numbers on the spec sheet really don't matter. It's how the bike feels in front of you when you're on it. If it feels good, if it puts a smile on your face, well, that's all you need to know. And this bike absolutely 100% puts a smile on my face. Absolutely love this motorcycle, and I do want to do our in-depth comparison between this and the ZR, but I do want to wait until the weather is a little bit better, so might wait till March time, mid to late March, early April to shoot that one. But in the meantime, I mean, I'm just going to enjoy riding this motorcycle just as it is, and appreciate the engineering, the marvel of engineering that this motorcycle is. This is pushing a lot of boundaries, and the only way that anyone was able to get more power out of one of these bikes was to increase the displacement, and to increase it by a significant amount. What is this, like a 1090 cc-ish, something like that? That's not that much more displacement than a Fireblade, right? An older Fireblade, but this bike is producing more torque than one of those Fireblades, despite the fact that it has a similar amount of displacement that it's playing with. So again, yes, it does ride a little bit more like a Super Sport, because it's producing, you feel a lot more of that power at the top end of the rev range, but you're getting buckets more torque at the lower end as well. Way more to play with than you would on a Fireblade or one of those types of motorcycles, honestly. Even the modern day Fireblade, you're not going to get anywhere near as much torque on that in the first 10,000 RPM as you are on this bike. You know what I mean? It's just, that's just the way how these modern super sports are designed these days. They're designed to, you know, it's that top number, that 220 horsepower or whatever it is. You know, that's meant to be like the headline figure, but you're not going to be able to access any of that power on everyday roads, honestly. It might entice people to buy the bikes, but this is, it's not producing anywhere near as much peak horsepower, but it's producing a lot more torque and a lot more power where you need it. And that creates a more satisfying riding experience on everyday roads. Seriously, what a motorcycle this is. Anyway, you guys, I mean, I'm just about heading into my destination here. Oh, blimey. Paul didn't see that. But yeah, you guys let me know what you think down in the comment section below about this awesome Honda Super Blackbird down in the comment section. Let me know what you think about this motorcycle. Why is this bike one of the GOATs? Because it really is. This is one of the greatest motorcycles of all time. And not because he's one of the best, but because it pioneered, it started, arguably it started the whole super heavyweight kind of speed wars. This was one of those integral motorcycles in that whole equation. It really did help kick off some of the, well, yeah, some of the awesome power that we are getting these days in modern bikes, and it's all because of this. All because of bikes like this. Absolutely fantastic. But yeah, thank you ever so much for joining us today on this cold but fairly dry and decent ride out with me. I'm actually fairly surprised that this weather is holding out for us today to shoot these videos. But yeah, thanks again. Take care, ride safe, and we will catch you all in the next video. Have a good one. Oh, don't forget to leave that like, hit that subscribe button if I haven't mentioned it already.